In this video, I'm going to look at grouped data. Now, grouped data is data that has been organized into classes. So, grouped data is data that has been organized For example, in this case, we have a scientist which had too much time on her hands and she measured the lengths of worms in her garden. Now, this data, remember, this is continuous data because it has to do with measurement. Now, the data was put into categories called class intervals. What I mean by class intervals is here. For example, the first row is the number of worms that measured between 0 and 3 centimeters. There are 5 of them. The number of worms that measured between 3 and 6 centimeters. There are 6 of them, and so on and so forth. Now, when you group data this way, there are some things that you need to know. For example, this particular interval here, means in this interval, so it means that in this interval, do not include 0, include 0 but do not include 3. So in this interval, we are going to include 0 but did not include 3. So it means in this interval, include 0 but do not include 3. Okay, next thing that I'm going to look at is a frequency histogram. Now, a frequency histogram is a special graph that uses vertical columns to show frequencies. So we can actually represent this grouped data into a frequency histogram. So the first thing that we need to do here is, of course, to draw our axis. Now the vertical axis will represent the frequencies and the horizontal axis will represent the length of the worms. So this will be length in centimeters. Okay, so here we'll have 0, 3, 6, 9, 15, sorry, 12. Just repeat this again. 0, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. And then on the vertical axis, you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, the number of worms that measured between 0 and 3 centimeters, so the number of worms that measured between 0 and 3 centimeters were 5 of them. So that is 5. The number of worms that measured between 3 and 6 centimeters was 6. The number of worms that measured between 6 and 9 centimeters was 7. The number of worms that measured between 9 and 12 were 8. And between 12 and 15 were 4. what you need to notice from the frequency histogram is the horizontal axis is continuous like a number line. So I'm just going to write those points here. Um, the horizontal axis is continuous like a number line. Remember, this is because what you're representing here is continuous data. All right, so that's why the horizontal axis is continuous like a number line. So basically, what you have here is you're grouping this item, this measurements, and that's why your horizontal axis is continuous. And in fact, the most important thing here is there should be no gaps between the bars because this is continuous data. So again, another thing is there should not be any gaps between the bars. So that's very important. Yeah, because we are representing continuous data, there should be no gaps between these bars. Anyway, another thing that we can find from this information here is we can try and find the mode of this data. Now we know that the modal class interval is a group which occurs the most times. So the modal class interval is a group that occurs most times. So basically, if you look at here, let me just write that definition here. So the modal class so what you're saying here is the modal class interval is a group that occurs most times. Now, if you look at this data, if you look at the table where we represented this data, you can see that actually the modal class will be 9 to 12. Okay, so basically we can say that so the modal class interval is 9 to 12 centimeters. Okay, now from the table you can see that actually that is the modal class which has the biggest frequency. And also you can see the modal class from the frequency table, and basically it's the frequency group, it's the class interval that forms the tallest column. So it's the class interval that forms the tallest column, this one here. All right, so you can see that on the left, this one here, so you can see modal class interval. This is the modal class interval, and of course there as well, that is the modal class interval. So you can, from the Frequency histogram, you can see that the model class interval is the one that forms the tallest column, and from the table, the one that has the highest frequency.